Good morning, and welcome to the Financial Pillars All About the Money podcast, presented by Our Neutral Voices Media. Our show is all about helping our audience understand money, mindsets, and tap into the economic knowledge that builds financially secure individuals, families, and communities. So whether you're tuning into our show to learn about budgeting, building credit, investing, or starting your own business, we're here to break down the knowledge in a real and relatable way. Gentlemen, we're missing Pastor T today, so Ben, you want to take us in with a little prayer?
Sure. God, we thank you for this morning and getting us safe. We ask you to guide us through our conversation today and may it be useful to our listening viewers. In Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that. So, a few introductions here. My name's Ryan Leopard. I'm a private banker with Star Financial Bank.
I'm JJ Foster, Lake City Bank.
And I'm Ben, branch manager at Flagstone Bank.
And obviously, we're missing our man T today. So,
Shout out T.
Yep. Look forward to having him back next time. So, gentlemen, last time we kind of talked about credit, building credit, responsible ways to do that. Today, we kind of wanted to talk about financial struggles and kind of where we're at with, inflation, high prices, things like that, and the struggles that our families and our communities are dealing with financially wise as well. So, where do we want to start this off with, JJ?
Man, you know what? And it just hit me too. Even before we jump off into that, we actually just had a U-Sense
event
bring
it up at the end,
this
but,
week.
yeah.
So, but just give a real quick recap. Went well, excellent turnout. We had kids probably from elementary through high school. And again, just some of the feedback. There were some kids there that actually had jobs that, they were working jobs, teens that were working. And once they went and visited the different businesses and had to learn how to balance their mortgage payment with their different bills and things, they were like, well, wait a minute, I don't have to do all this. I make my money and my money is mine. But they talked about, the value of the exercise. So we actually got a donation out of it too. Shout out to Tim Smith, gave a $10,000 donation during the event. And late June will be our next one. And we like to, always like to see a good turnout. And it was excellent turnout. We had 15 volunteers just from Lake City Bank alone, because to make, for you all that don't know what happened, there was a reality store which actually teach young people. They get a scenario on how much they make for a year. You draw how many kids you have, if you're married, unmarried, and then you have to navigate with paying your bills. And they get to choose everything from, do I have a pet, what kind of subscriptions they have, whether it's Netflix, cable, any real life activity that you have, these kids get to do it basically like a simulation. But our Lake City employees manned each of those stations. We had several volunteers from ONV that were out there. And like I said, it just was a great day. So when you say, what are we going to talk about today? What those kids experience is kind of like what people are experiencing right now in real life. We had on our show, we talked about the effects of the inflation and everything that's been going on. It's a lot of things that people are doing without or having to make choices what they're going to do and not do. I keep my ear to the road, whether it's in our community, whether what's going on around the world, and I listen to some of the things that people are talking about. You have people that are literally out there choosing between taking their medicine and not taking their medicine. Do I go to the hospital? Do I not go to the hospital? When you talk quality child care, there's people that are setting up cameras in their home and going to jobs and using these cameras as babysitters, which is not a great idea, because there's been incident where the kids have left and they've gotten in trouble. But these are real life situations, because the cost of gas, when you talk about gas going on $6 a gallon at some places, this affects everything. That's why we see our food prices are up. So just simply cooking dinner and having get-togethers, you have to get a lot more creative and do things, because I was just on the phone this morning with my mother talking about I picked up 5 items and I spent $50 just running into the grocery store and coming out. And that's the reality where we're at. So hopefully on today's show, we can talk and you guys can share stories and things that and we can kind of help people out and give them some strategies on how to navigate during these tough times.
Gotcha. Very good. Very good. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I was actually looking up. The inflation rate is at 3.8%, which is high from 3.3, which is the highest inflation rate we've had. And so just navigating what JJ just shared and looking at the fact that wages are still the same. Cost of living has skyrocketed. Price of gas is high. It's really tough for everybody. It's more so a conversation on how now we can navigate the tough economic situation going on with the earnings that we have. The only thing that I could potentially think about would be my salary has remained the same, and so has been for everybody. Anybody who's received an increase, maybe like an annual merit, has not really kept up with the cost of living. I can really empathize with going to grocery shopping and really spending more than I anticipated. And so the only thing that came up to mind was more so budgeting and just being emotionally aware of how I'm spending money, especially during this time, because this is not the time that I would go to Walmart and just pick up things for the sake of unnecessary
needs.
Because one thing adds up, and then it's also that. And then also just thinking about, for anyone who's going through a really tough time frame, what are the side opportunities that can increase income, so that we can figure out a way to increase income, and whether that's self-employment, a part-time job, something else that would really bring more money in. Looking at other ways to cut costs. What's one way we can reevaluate current subscriptions, current life habits, and really ask ourselves, do we really need this, or do we want it, and eliminate cost that way.
Yeah, and one thing you said there that really struck with me, when in inflationary times, struggling times, budgeting's huge on that, right? Kind of sitting down and figuring out where your money's going and prioritizing what you're doing with those funds, right?
Yeah.
Where can I cut back?
Yeah.
The other thing he said that stuck out to me, being aware. And that's the funny thing. I equate it to the medical situation. A lot of people will not go to the doctor and will ignore it, because if I don't go, what I don't know, I'm all right. I can walk around, I may
There's people like that, yeah.
I
don't want to
can
hear
have
bad news.
There you go.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear any bad news. People do the same thing with finances. Here we are, like you said, my salary stayed the same,
Great point.
and everything is coming up. But hey, if I don't look at it, if I don't pay no attention, I'm
I
good.
don't open that mail.
Don't open that mail. But I continue to do it. I'm just not going to look at my account. You have to be aware. You have to take a look and navigate and try to figure some things out. And you have to cut back. Those who aren't cutting back are headed. It's a recipe for disaster. And this is not a low to moderate socioeconomic thing. This is a everybody in America thing. Middle class. I think I said before we got on air, those are the folks that suffer the most, because again, that middle class salary, you miss out on some assistance that you could potentially get because your income is too high. But on the same token, to Ben's point, your income is what stayed right where it's at, but things have risen around you. So you definitely have to be aware of what's going on with your surroundings.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you let those bills just sit there and pile up and don't open them. And I think people are just scared to look at that there, because they don't want to cut back on the areas they need to cut back on. So if I don't know if this is here, I can still kind of live and enjoy doing what I want. But ultimately, in tough times, you got to really sit down and prioritize. So knowing what's going on is absolutely important with it. Yep.
I have my small list, and I tell you, when I go to Walmart or grocery shopping anywhere, I'm in and out. I'm sticking to my list right now because it's affecting everyone.
Yep.
And I was just even thinking about utilities on other ways that people can really navigate the high cost of living would be, for instance, and I'm not endorsing NIPSCO, but NIPSCO has had like structured payment where you can have a fixed monthly payment for 12 months.
Yep.
So those are things that I've done personally to reduce cost. What that has done is it has really brought structure to my monthly budget, because I really like a specific budget. Like I want to know exactly what's coming in and what's going out, if at all I can. And so one way everybody can do that would be looking into utilities and seeing, can we get into structured fixed monthly payments? That way it can override everything. Because when we're thinking about cost of living, we're looking at also businesses. It has impacted not just consumers, but businesses as well, because their operational cost has gone up. So if they're going to buy materials and produce, and they're buying that at a higher price, that means that the operational cost is also high, and they're really passing those prices down to the
they got to,
consumers.
right? Stay in business. They got to pass that down to the consumer. So ultimately, it all ends up on
It all ends up to us. So it's really affecting everyone as a whole, and just looking at it in a way that what are ways that we can really look at to cut back when it comes to utilities, if they're structured payments, really doing that.
So to your point, I think it's a great point to make is instead of letting those bills pile up and ignoring them like they don't exist, be proactive. Reach out to your utility company, reach out to your mortgage company, reach out to your landlord, whoever, because ultimately their end goal is they want to get their money, right? The deeper you go in debt, the harder it's going to be for them to collect the money, right? So if you can get on some sort of payment plan, restructuring, a lot of mortgage companies will do that where, I'm missing the term where they kind of throw it on to the end of it.
It's a loan modification.
Loan modification,
Right.
yep. Do a loan modification on that where, it can kind of keep you up to date with everything.
Correct.
But not just letting things pile up and getting out of control for you.
Yeah. And you said a good point. And I actually learned about loan modification 13 years ago. So I remember when I just started my career, I had a lady that used to come in to make a monthly payment on time. And one time she came in, she was really scrambling for change. She was trying to come up with enough money to pay up. And I looked at the system, mortgage was pretty much past due for a few months, and I felt helpless, and I didn't know what to do. And so when we called in, we talked to a customer service representative at the mortgage department. They really helped her big time because one, they looked at her missed monthly payments. They added that to the end of the loan. They even gave her a grace period where she had a few months to make payments to really get back on track. And that's one thing that, it was a learning lesson for me, but she also had a big relief because had she not shared with me about what was going on, I would not have known how to help her. I still didn't have the answers, but I reached out to someone who really did. And so the key thing here is we may be struggling as much. You could be having a credit card that is past due, a car payment that is past, anything that you're struggling with. It's always safe. I know it's not a very comfortable conversation to go into a bank and say, hey, by the way, I don't have your money. But sometimes it helps just opening up because banks and financial institutions, I also think businesses too, they're all about relationship. They're in the business of making a profit. So they need people to come in and, they need that cyclical client. And so what that does is there has to be a relationship aspect where they can also meet your needs. So it's never too late to go in and tell whoever you owe money to, even if it's a person, hey, I don't have it today. I'm really struggling. What can I do to keep things afloat, or what are my options?
Yeah, and it's funny because that's one of my notes that I had. Because there are a lot of businesses and things, again, you reach out, they have customer retention programs that they're willing to work with you, and you get, credit, but that's allowing you to put money back in your pocket. But the fact that you took it to the banks and mortgage, I can appreciate that because, again, one of the things that we're seeing now in our times, what else is going up? Property taxes and insurance. So I do a mortgage for somebody, hey, Mr. Foster, Mr. JJ, hey, you said I had a fixed rate. How did my payment go up? Well, yeah, your rate is fixed. The one thing we can't control is insurance and property taxes, and we know those things are going up or high, during these times. But shout out to our Candy Little is my person in the bank when you talk about loan modifications. Sitting, happy to work with people. I've sat down and watched her work her magic, and sit down with clients and come up with something that works for them, and comes up with has excellent strategies to where, to your point, we're gonna get our money back, but it's fit and structured to a point that works with the client.
Yeah. I mean, businesses are no different than individuals. You lend somebody money, do you want to have to worry about trying to track them down and get your money?
Yeah.
Right? Or would you want them to come to you and talk to you about, I don't got it this week, I can get it next week, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
With it. But speaking of loan modifications and kind of doing that stuff, calling your credit card company and making some payment arrangements, something like that, that's an option. But on the other note, how does that affect credit, right? Do you have any insight on that?
I'm not a credit expert, so I would not know much, but I would think more so it's better off to look at to have a loan modified than having missed payments.
Correct.
Because I think a derogatory report would be, if anything is in collection, it affects your credit score much. I think JJ, you're better off since you
And I was gonna say, just had a scenario with a person who had called in, said they were struggling. Anytime, if that modification doesn't include you paying less than what your mortgage is, because like I said, if you can get creative enough to where you're going to pay, but it's just you might make smaller payments over a certain amount of time or whatever the case may be, and they've got it set up where you're going to get caught up when you get your taxes back or when you get through this, that, the other. I just say there are things that you can do prior to getting to the point to where it's going to affect your credit. But when you're going to change the structure of that loan, again, forbearance or something like that, that could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I brought up that question
Right.
there, is just understanding in tough times, we talked about choices. You have to make choices. We know you not making your payments is going to have a negative impact on that credit.
Right.
Loan modifications, they may have an impact also, but what, the pros and cons versus
There you
that.
go.
Yeah.
And in times like this, as we talking about, when you in survival mode, okay, my credit might not be that good, but I'm still gonna be in my home.
Yep.
I'm still gonna have my vehicle. I had to do some things to make it work. I'm not really thinking about my credit because down the line, I'm gonna stay in this hole. I got my shelter. I have my transportation.
And doing the loan modification, things like that, being upfront with them may eliminate some of those penalties and fees on the back end that are ultimately, hey, my credit might be affected either way, but I'm not costing myself more money if they're willing to work with me and kind of, waive some of that stuff or modify my payments to the end of it so I'm not continually getting late fees and payments on it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else on that?
I just, and again, things that are out there, we talked about calling our creditors and things. When we're talking about grocery shopping, which is huge. And there's so many people that, hey, I only use Crest. I only used, certain
shopping.
brand name of potato chips and whatnot. You see a lot of people that are doing the more dollar stores. Forget about the brand name, going to, the Walmart brand or whatever, you don't have to have that signature brand. So again, people are out there that are making, that are doing this. I'm even gonna call it a sacrifice, because one of the things that I learned all the way back, when I was in college, they talked about the big boys own the non-brand stuff, and you basically are getting the same thing, which a lot of people just get caught up in the brand name. But so, you back up off of having brand name stuff is always an easy sacrifice. The other thing, shout out to Denise Porter Ross. She used to lead our cooking classes at the Housing Authority, and brought her in, and she would show you how to be so cost effective. I mean, you buy a whole chicken, and she
Costco, $5.
There you go. Hey,
Doesn't
she
get any
cook
cheaper
it.
than that.
She make chicken noodle soup. She make chicken salad. She make chicken sandwiches, and she show you everything and how to store it. She take a loaf of bread, hit him with some seasoning, put it in the oven, bake it, make the best French bread, French toast bread that you ever gonna have. Show people how to do stuff with beans. You take beans and make all kind of different things with that tastes just as good as any meat product as you had. And the thing that I always marveled at, you have little kids in there. That's always your litmus. Then they're in their class and they're looking. They can turn their nose up, but then you taste it, and then it's like, whoa, it tastes just as good as the other stuff. So these are all things that you get creative. Side hustles. I think Ben hit on that. Side hustles are huge, and I think I read a status like 44% of Americans now have something outside of their job. So
As
when
far
you,
as like another source of income.
correct,
Yep.
yes,
Okay.
another
Yep.
source of income. Again, side hustle has become the common term. I had actually one of our volunteers this weekend. And I was talking about things that we could do to improve the experience. And shout out to Leslie. She said, "Hey, we may need to add side hustle to the activity because it is so prevalent." And when you think about the different services that are out there and the cost of things, yeah, people are looking for, there's ways that you can get in and make a little extra money, whether it's, cutting grass to, people doing hair and nails, because when you go into regular shops, And getting professionals, that stuff is up there. So people are always looking for, somebody to provide those services.
Yeah. So to that point, financially hard times, inflationary times, that type of thing.
Eliminate things.
Looking at finding another job, second job, something like that, if you have the time to be able to do that, because obviously that's one thing we can't create is more time. But if you have the time, it may not be ideal, but once again, you got to make choices and do what you got to do to get through those tough times as well.
Yeah.
So in relation to tough times, and we talked about credit last time, why that's another reason why it's so important to have good credit in those those tough times there too, because talked about responsible ways to use credit cards. Well, if you have a credit card in these times, you could be able to use that to make those purchases, and maybe you make minimum payments, whatever the case may be, but it's able to get you through those tough times. Same thing with, car prices going through the roof, right? We talked about last time, credit, you have bad credit, you're going to pay more for that car, right? You're going to pay higher interest rates. So when cars are going up, that's even higher payments. Yep.
Yeah. I want to be careful with that though, because again, I'm in tough times and I start putting stuff on the credit card. And again, everything that we talked about is what you put on that credit card, making sure you can pay off at the end of the month. Mm-hmm. But then, like you said, I'm in tough times, so I got to do what I need to do to get through. And then at the end of the day, I may dig myself a bigger hole than I would like. Obviously, credit cards and what you just described, I mean, if that's the ultimate, if that's the end goal, that's something you need to do it. But I still say utilize some of these other options and things that we talked about before you would go to that.
Correct. Once again, comes back down to budgeting.
Correct.
You still need to cut out the unnecessary things, the luxury items and stuff like that. This is coming down to, I need to pay my electric bill.
Yeah.
Right? Do I want to just try and do a payment plan? That's a possibility. Or can I put it on the credit card now, pay it off? Gives you a little bit more time to budget for that.
Yeah, because I think I wouldn't want that person to fit into the role when I was talking about, I'm just going to continue to live my life. I'm not going to pay attention to my.
Correct.
And I'm just everything went up, but I'm just going to go ahead.
I'm buying buying Jordans in tough times, right?
And we're in such a high rate environment right now, so it's always wise for everybody to know that it's not just inflation. Interest rate is solely also it relates to the prime rate, and so if the prime rate is high, it all passes down to consumers. Anytime that there is inflation, is pretty much trying to control money in the economy, right? That tells us that it's driven by there's too much supply of money in the economy. The interest rate is high to control that borrowing rate environment, so it makes borrowing less likely. So it makes also borrowing a strategic decision making. So if you're going to borrow money, you want to look at a strategic way of borrowing money. Do you want to use it on a credit card? Would you rather get it on a fixed rate with a fixed monthly payment with an option to refinance later? If you're thinking about maybe making a big purchase right now, is it worth it today in such a rate environment? Or would you rather wait until the rate goes down? Because the inflation will not be around forever. It's pretty much until the Feds really look into the money supply in the economy and say, okay, we're in such a good place now to start reducing the Fed funds rate. And so as we're getting towards that better horizon where we'll be in a better market environment to borrow money, I understand there's somebody who could not be in a position to stay without. They may need to borrow. And so that's where we'd come in and say, think about it carefully, shop around, look at a fixed rate if at all possible. Focus on making sure that, if you have to borrow, because there are times that you may need a car. There are times that you may just need money to pay to consolidate things and pay yourself first, or get things better. Shop around, and I say, as much as people focus more on what's the interest rate, maybe today is the time where we look at it and say, what's the monthly payment? Because we want to be able to afford that monthly payment. And stay within that time frame, and shopping around different banks to see who offers the lowest rate possible, if at all, to get that. Something else that also I wanted to also touch on would be, as much as we're in such a high rate environment, is also really looking at how are we managing our resources today to leverage ourselves up, because there are times that you may find somebody has so much money, it's just sitting in a checking account earning 0.01, and your money is not growing much. Your money is not,
losing money in
you're
inflation,
losing money.
right?
Yeah. And it's actually a disservice to you if you have any money sitting in a checking account. Is really, could you get a high yield savings? Could you put it in a money market fund? Something
CDs,
that you could do to really pretty much leverage. Because what people also don't understand is, anytime there's an inflation, and the cost of pricing, when you look at the consumer price index, it's never, things are not fixed strategic. Like you look at the price of housing 5 years ago, you look at the price of how we even bought things years ago, it's different compared to today. So the unfortunate reality is, when we're in a slow price increase environment, and as much as prices are increasing, we want to make sure that also we are growing within that rate. And so if inflation rate is at 3.8% today, and your money sitting in a checking account earning you 0.01, that's a disservice to you. So if you really have a bigger amount of money that you don't need today, figure out the best rate you can get. Figure out ways to sit with an advisor and do something with your money. Obviously, there's risks, but
So I know people like that have money sitting in a savings account because it makes them feel all cozy and warm, and they have this money. But in reality, they don't necessarily understand what that means when it comes to inflation, right? If inflation is going at 3.8% per year, your money today is actually worth 3.8% less next year.
And your money is not growing, and you're losing purchasing power in the long run.
Yeah.
So what 10,000 is able to buy today is not going to be able to afford you the same thing 5 years from today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well put.
Yeah.
Well put.
So, talking about folks in struggling times, inflationary times, things like that. Talked about some budget, how budgeting is the key, and understanding cutting back on things that we don't necessarily need. But for those out there that they're doing what they can, they have two jobs, they're still struggling. Do we know of any resources out there that would kind of help them get through those time things? And when I'm asked this question, kind of thinking of terms of like our friends at Brightpoint and places like that.
Yeah, I think you said it. Bright Points, churches. There are places out there that work with folks. Your townships, you start there. People that are working with things like the housing authorities. Urban League has resources. So these are organizations that you can reach out there. There's 411 or 311. 311 is our city information center. So when you need things, you can dial that number. They can get you hooked up with different services. Hey, shout out to our Neutral Voices. That's one of the things that we focus. There's, go to our website, get you linked in to different organizations and agencies that can assist you in a variety of areas. Whether it's counseling, help with your kids, bill pay, whoever. We could get you directed into the right direction. But yeah, it's definitely frustrating. I was just thinking as I was sitting here, I know you got young kids and you got a baseball team. One of our highlights after playing baseball, we used to go to McDonald's. I mean, you guys been to McDonald's? You want to tell me what a value meal costs now?
Oh,
How
yeah.
much McDonald's?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You think about it. I mean, 15, $20 for fast food. I mean, the few times, I don't eat there often now, but I'm like, this is crazy. I might as well do a sit-down restaurant.
So I think, to your point, I would remember as a kid, I told my kids this many times because I don't ever step foot inside of McDonald's anymore. It's there. But back in the old day, after a baseball game, parents take you to McDonald's. You go inside, they got the playground and all the cool things in there, and 69-cent cheeseburger or something like that. Now it was $2 a cheeseburger, or, if not more.
It becomes so transactional right now.
Yeah.
Like everything is very transactional. You go to the drive-through, you don't have people contact. And I always tell clients sometimes, when you go through the ATM or if you go through our drive-through, yes, you're going to get what you need, but sometimes the level of service that you get is pretty much not the exceptional one, because now you're lacking the person contact. And so we're in such a time where now information is power. And so I always say, if anybody's walking into my branch at Flagstaff and they're making a deposit, don't just walk away. Just if you're able to have a conversation, open up, talk about your financial priorities, talk about things that you're potentially struggling with. As bankers, we're relationship builders, and I'm not just at Flagstaff, I'm sure it's everywhere. You go in, people try to have those small talks. They're not having those small talks just to have a small talk. Sometimes those small talks are strategic to make you feel comfortable, to provide you with an exceptional customer experience, to make you open up a little bit. And maybe they can ask, is there anything you're working on right now that we can help you with? Is there anything else we can need? And so I always say that's a really good point. If you're walking in somewhere and you're just making a deposit and somebody's trying to have a conversation with you, engage as much as you can. And if there's an opportunity for question, please ask, because it's not just about the resources, it's also about the assistance you may get. And there are times that we may think that everything is okay. You know, maybe there's a rate that I'm seeing that you don't know about. Maybe there's a better solution that I'm seeing that you don't see. Maybe there's a better structured loan payment that I see that you don't. And so as much as, as bankers, we may try to make you open up, walk in somewhere knowing that, hey, I'm going to interact with a human, and the goal for it is to get that exceptional life. Because it's so easy to get accustomed to just going to the ATM and withdrawing money, because you withdraw money and you go, and then you expect the same when you go to interact with someone. I just want to make my deposit and leave. But the goal for it is, are you better off walking out and me not talking to you and adding value to that interaction?
Uncovering financial needs.
Yeah.
Right? Not to sell you a product that you don't need, uncovering the financial needs that you may or may not know that you need.
Yeah.
Right? So you may be struggling with something financially.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily know the right questions to ask or what's out there to be able to help you. But we're having those conversations to kind of uncover those things going on in your life to say, I may have a solution for you.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's one thing that, I've heard people say, oh, I just like to go through the ATM and just do that because I'm in and out. And it's good to have that convenience. It's really good to have that. But let's remember that life is not transactional. It's really good. Sometimes it's good to know what you don't know. It's good to interact with someone and have that connection. It's good as we sit here, we learn from each other. The things you share that, I learn from, and I think vice versa. So it's important that, when we as people go in front of someone and we're getting a service, when they're having that conversation with us, when they're trying to have a conversation, don't take it as a waste of time or hurry up.
Or being nosy.
Or being nosy. Yeah. It's more so to help you. I'm structured in a way that sometimes I go into different banks or I go somewhere and I will even tell my friends, that wasn't good customer service. That wasn't friendly. And they're like, Ben, what are you talking about? And I would say that because I'm in customer service. If I walk in somewhere and someone helps me meet my need, I made my deposit and walk away, or I just buy something, have a great day, I feel somehow as a disservice, right? Yeah. So I said that in light of for people to have that open mindset, because sometimes help doesn't come from someone going in and asking for help. Sometimes help comes in terms of going in and someone adding value. Sometimes you may go to a doctor for just a checkup and the doctor says, let's also do this and that and that. And by the way, this is what I noticed from that. And so it could mean the same thing. Yeah, it could mean the same thing. Yeah, you go into a bank. The goal for it is maybe the person may have a different answer. Maybe the person may try to know you to provide you a different kind of experience that you would not get from the ATM, from the night drop, from the online banking.
Like everything you said, man, I got a lot of stuff came to my mind. First off, you talked about the relationship. That's the number one thing we preach at our workshops on the set. You want to go to a bank where you have a relationship with somebody. I've told the story before, to your point. 24-year-old kid. I walked in. I wanted to buy a truck. I was buying a car, and I wanted to get a car loan. I walked in thinking I'm gonna get a car loan. My guy set me down. He said, "JJ, why would you get a car loan? You got a CD over here that has X amount of dollars in it. You just want to hear. we're gonna loan you the money, use your CD as collateral. And I basically bought the car. The car was mine. It was paid off, and I paid off this little loan. I want to say it was about 2% or something.
And you
something
saved money
silly
that way.
But to your point, I had no idea. They walked in, they knew who I was.
Right.
That relationship, and had I done it your way, like I said, went online and did something, I would have got a car loan.
Yeah.
At 8% or whatever it was back
That's why
then.
we're the experts in our field. We know what we can do for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those conversations kind of help. We don't know what needs you have unless we talk about it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I love it. But then the other part about what you talking about, you just made me think about it. You realize, and that's one of the problems with our society, it's people out there with no human contact. I can stay at home. I can sit on my computer. I work from home on that computer, social media. I can DoorDash. I can get my groceries online. Like I can bank online. I don't have to interact with anybody. I can come up with any theory, any conclusion. I can be as a genius as I want. I don't have to interact with anybody. I'm
Society isn't getting better in
No,
that aspect.
that's
It's getting
exactly
worse
right.
in that aspect. So
Correct.
to that point, one of my previous employer that I was with, I won't name any names, but they went on a push when we were talking about ATMs, because you can do a lot of your banking at ATMs. You don't have to come inside. You don't have to interact with anything like that. And they're coming up with a push like, we want to take customers to the ATMs. We want to show them what they can do. We want to, not in their words, but kind of push the customers out there, right? Because in the overall grand scheme of things in the corporate world, it saves money, less employees, less healthcare, less everything like that. But at the end of the day, it's taking people out of the branches. They're talking about the youth. This is the way youth want to do it. They want to do it through apps and stuff like that. But I think it's our responsibility to kind of impose the fact on them that the relationship is meaningful.
Correct.
Right? So we don't find ourselves in those situations kind of counteractive to what society is going to.
That's true, yeah, because AI is pretty much, it's a good automation system. It's going to reduce the human aspect, but it's good to kind of have that person contact. I have friends who haven't been in their bank for over 5 years, and because the systems are there to provide that convenience. And it's interesting, the systems kind of more so conflict with the human aspect. But at the same time the business has to make a strategic move to be competitive, because if they don't provide those resources, somebody else who's doing that they're not as competitive enough. But always remember that when you use the ATM, which is good, I encourage it all the time. If it's outside business hours, always remember that the human aspect is there. And if there's any key takeaway that I'll say is, anywhere you go in and they meet your need and they tell you have a great day, that's not good customer service. The key message from this would be, if you walk into a bank and you just make a deposit and somebody have a great day and they don't make you open up, that's not a good customer service. But also knowing that, don't be in a rush unless you are. Don't be in a rush unless you are. So if someone is really trying to have a small talk with you, make you open up, or ask how your day is going, or what can I help you financially, open up and lean into it, because the goal for it is to provide you with a great client experience. The goal for it would be for you to find value in the human interaction. The goal for it will not just to be a financial institution, but to build trust, add value. And again, we become more competitive, because when you come back to me, when someone comes back to you, they see value in things that you've done. And they help you better. So it's good to always know what you don't know.
Absolutely. So, great conversation today. Before we get out of here, JJ, I know you brought us in with the Youth Sense. You want to take us out with any other happenings in communities, or remind us about the next Youth Sense and where that's at?
Yeah, like I said, next Youth Sense, it'll be the end of June. I'll have to get a date. I'll have it by the time we do our next podcast. I'll let you know all the details about what's going on. But other than that, man, great conversation. And hope we added a little value to folks. There's so many things out there, and I think that we didn't even touch on too. I mean, when you talk about internet service and some of these subscriptions that cost money, when there's things out there like the library, utilize our library. We got one of the best libraries in the country. It's there are so many different things. People don't know that things that you can rent, movies and the internet, the books. A lot of different music you can download and get from the library. Utilize that. The YMCA and the scholarship programs that it has that you can reach out. Just a lot of different resources that are out there there are tough times. We do know there was some job cuts that we didn't even talk about that took place. But just hang in there. Know that you aren't alone. A lot of resources out there. Utilize, like I said, our Neutral Voices website, 311, whichever, to get the help that you may need. But hopefully we brought some value. And shout out to World of Janae. She gave us a good morning, guys. She was there again. So
Morning, Jack.
Yes.
My last parting shot will be come July 3rd, I have a financial empowerment day at my branch.
Sorry, what was the date?
It's July 3rd.
July 3rd?
July 3rd. I have a financial empowerment day. This is a really good day that we have a tabling event within the branch. And the goal for it would be just to provide an opportunity to meet key partners. So I'll have a mortgage partner. I'll have a financial advisor. I have a business consultant. Bankers will be there. The goal for it will be not just to provide you with that transactional aspect, but provide the human element. So the goal for it will be just to get to know you, get to meet a financial consultant. We get to add value. We get to know what your financial priorities are and empower you. That's why we decided to call it Financial Empowerment Day. You don't have to bank with us to come in, but again, there'll be a table. We'll have snacks, beverages, and the goal for it will be just, we understand it's a tough current market. Provide solutions, provide assistance, add value through communication and things like that. So if anyone is watching, July 3rd, you're welcome to stop in and visit.
Y'all gonna have fireworks?
At our branch, Flagstaff Bank, Clinton, and Rudisol.
That's what I'm going to say. You want to pull out with the location?
Yeah.
We need fireworks, man. July 3rd. I need fireworks.
Awesome. So, all right, gentlemen, great conversation. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Till then, we are Our Neutral Voices. Peace.